like 1900 Rugrat as well. So
Okay. Oh, that's okay. We love that because this is, I mean, call ourselves a culture part as well.
yeah,
We used to do
uh,
um uh
1900.
a music segment, like start off the show with a music segment because it's like a pandemic baby for us. Um, but I mean, we just like I said, we all like working and evolving, so it gets a little tougher to I mean, we try to get in and out, like what happened, what we're talking about, what are people concerned about, things like that. But okay, we love a little cultural talk off top.
That's
Let me see.
right.
Let me get because we're live now, so let me get some links out. Let me get these links out. But yeah, we'll get it jumped out soon. Y'all'll be all right. It'll be okay. Y'all see me do this all the time. Y'all'll be good. We'll probably get a couple trickle in. So you're a hardcore like print guy. That's kind of like where you lay your head, huh?
What's that?
Like you're just like a hardcore print guy. Like that's kind of like your realm that you like to be in, huh?
Oh, I mean, I just consume basketball, man. I'll consume basketball and anything. Me personally, I love writing. Like writing's my
Mm,
thing. Um, and obviously it's one of those things like for me, kind of like looking at the numbers, my written stuff would get more eyes than my podcast. But yeah,
mm,
so I'm like, okay. Also, like, I love doing it. I love writing. I love putting together my film. Obviously, I've had stuff where I've incorporated my film. I've put together film dives on Desmond Bain. I put together film dives on, I did one with Luke Kennard, Jake LaRavia, and
okay.
Santi Aldama, where I got to like take the voiceover that I got from
Hmm.
media interviews and incorporate it into the film. And I used some Tomas Isolo and Nola Roach film. And then I did a video that I had it uploading. I had a lot of high hopes for it because it was about Wembanyama and
Mm.
Jaren, but I had a upload mishap and
Oh
uh,
no.
it just tanked my views on that. So
We hate that. We had an interview and shout out to homeboy Jason Munn. Shout out to CA Newsroom, man. I did an
yeah,
interview with him right around it was like 2 weeks after Maui, I think. Talking Tigers and all that. It was really good. So I told you the guy that works for us, my co-host, that's that's playing pro in Germany. He's the editor. He edits the podcast. So
okay,
I was like, Nick, we transferred the file to him, and neither one of us we found it out. Like that was just when we transferred changed over to where you had a certain amount of time to download the links, and he didn't download it. He didn't download it. I think like 3 4 days. So we lost it because it's like I had deleted it off my desktop when he downloaded well, like when I sent it to him, so it was
yeah,
gone. I was sick. We were sick because like I said, Munz is he's a busy guy, so it was a big deal to get him on.
yeah. And Mons, man, he's one of the good ones in Memphis. I really enjoy following his Tiger coverage.
Yeah,
Um,
he's like a old like he's for me getting the chance to work with him last summer, like I mean it's a reason why we're still, I would consider close now. We
mhm.
talking because he's like an OG, but he's not like super old, like get off my lawn type. Even if that's the I tell him that's the aesthetic he gives. But
Yeah,
he just like it's on like he definitely, for me personally, kind of in that Jeff Calkins realm where it's like veteran, kind of been in this, in the city for a bit, has had some major events happen under his watch, talking about like Wiseman and all that. So no,
yeah,
it was really nice to just to tool around him, pick his brain, and just see how he goes about it. And for him, like I said, for that to be a thing to a situation to where, I can kind of call him a mentor and, kind of, call him with questions and all that. Like it's a blessing because like,
yep,
like I said, it's a thing to where like, I'm a part of the Tigers group chat. So I was gonna be consuming your work and hearing from you anyways. So to be able to, like I said, kind of have some more personalized stuff, it's really cool.
yeah.
The requisite links are up. My phone just cracked. That's wild. The requisite links are up. Parker, how are you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing good. Week before the draft, we
Yes.
have Game 6 tomorrow, the Thunder Pacers series. I'm a little worried. I've been pulling for the Pacers. I actually before the playoffs started, I was on 92.9 show with Gabe Kuhn, and I was like,
Shout out to homie Gabe Coon. That's
yeah, he's a
fourth
real
Mississippi.
one.
Yeah, that's my
He's a real
dog.
one. I said, hey, watch out for Indiana this playoffs. I'm like, I'm not gonna declare they win it all or even go to the finals, but I just think they're just better than people give them credit for. And sure enough, they're 2 wins away from an NBA championship. Now, with that said, I think they lose tomorrow because Tyrese Halliburton's on a strained calf right now, and that's just scary. Like you don't want to like that's like the precursor to an Achilles tear right there. And then I mean, Shea's been unbelievable all playoffs. I know everyone's all talking about like free throw merchant and all that stuff, but that dude's a
Yeah,
problem.
this
And
debate that they're trying to make about who's the Finals MVP, given OKC wins, ridiculous,
I
ridiculous.
will say J Dub's gone crazy though. J Dub
Oh,
has
for sure. 40 in the
J
finals,
Dub.
there was nothing to sneeze at. But like you said, and I am, and we'll get into it. I am not a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander fan. I am
Okay.
just that is not my aesthetic. It has been bemoaned on this show. Um, outside of the obvious, natural rivalry with OKC and
Mhm.
Memphis, he is just my. You talk about you're a ball guy. I mean, I can tell in the work you do, but like my general ethos of hoop, SGA represents like the opposite of
I
that.
get that.
And I'm not even like the foul merchant stuff. Like I had a way harder time watching Prime Harden than SGA.
Yeah, for
It's like a
sure.
real hooper. It's just again just the aesthetics. I think he is very lame. I think that I mean, I won't say foul merchant. Getting fouls is a part of the game, but it's definitely not the coolest way or most endearing way to score points. And just in general, like I guess I just think he's really lame, honestly. And if you're,
Yeah, I get it.
you can be lame and like if you're dunking on people and you're lame, like it's whatever. You can be lame or you can be like Steph Curry, whatever, like whatever. But like you're lame and your game does not give a exciting aesthetic. It's just not for me. It's not for me. I prefer to obviously our hometown guy 12 and Edwards. But even like, I mean, the debate now, like I would enjoy watching 48 minutes of Amir Thompson over SGA.
Okay.
But I just know that like and we're bigger men fans over here, or even like 48 minutes of Paulo Banchero over SGA. Like we're
Yeah.
those are our guys on this pod, all of us, honestly. Like I think at least, especially with a men, you're gonna get one segment. It's like 22 job. Like you're gonna get one play, 1-2 plays game where it's like, oh, nobody's ever done that, or nobody's ever looked like that doing that. And SGA is like, oh, he's gonna isolate midi up, pump fake,
On the
midi.
bright
Like
on the
I got
bright
it. It's
side.
cool. It's cool.
Hey, on the bright side though, everyone keeps saying like, "Oh man, they took the MIDI out the game, all this stuff." But I've always said the analytics aren't about taking the mid-range out of the game. It's taking the best shot. The analytics is all about taking the best shot for that player. And for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, it's the mid-range game, and he's bringing that back. But I understand, like for me, my that guy for me is Chet Holmgren. Like
Mm.
I think he's good. Don't get me wrong. I actually before the draft, before he came out of Gonzaga, I said this guy's like the Gen Z Pau Gasol. I think he's very good. Um, I just, I mean, some of his social media stuff kind of cringe, but guess what? We're in 2025, and
But
these,
that stuff matters though.
but
That
the
stuff
thing is,
matters.
we're
Like,
also raised in a generation now, like all these athletes were social media babies, so like we're just gonna get that. It comes with the territory. But I think he also just kind of gets a pass for a lot of stinkers, you know?
hmm,
I don't
okay.
I think J Dub takes a lot more flack for stinkers than Chet does. And I think and at first I was kind of worried, like, man, I don't envy OKC for having to pay Chet and J Dub both $200 million, but Chet or J Dub, he earned my respect with game five. Like that was a cold that game, he kind of put himself on the map as a killer, and it's pretty awesome.
I mean, I mean, for right now, everybody, the whole thing with OKC is who's their second guy. They don't have anybody else outside of SGA, at least until game six. I think that I don't think you can have that as a valid question anymore with the performance that he put up. I think that he is I mean, he's all NBA, all defensive. I think so. But like, yeah, he's like, you're not gonna have. He's a top 20 guy in this league, and
Hmm.
that's a hard get to have as a second option. So yeah, I think that's a hard. So that's a hard. Yeah, that conversation currently, I would think would be put to bed. I like
Yeah.
what you said about Chet too. And I'll pose just this question to you. It's gonna be a good show. How different do you think? those expectations would him would be would look like for him if he was taking one like we all thought he was up until 30 minutes before the draft. Because I know it's not a big difference, but there is like expectations is the first pick, even as the second pick. I feel like there's a significant. Yeah, he was the second pick, so yeah, I feel like there's a significant, thing. What say you?
My expectations to Chet if he went one instead of two.
Or just what do you think? Like you said, you don't feel like he gets a lot of flack for these thinkers. Do you think the microscope on him would be more intense if he had went one?
I
Like we
no,
thought.
I think it's more so a thing about him being on the same team as J Dub. Him
Okay.
being the third guy. I think that's mainly it. Don't get me wrong, he's an incredible defender. He's gonna win a defensive player of the year someday. Um, what's funny is I actually think that I don't like Lou Dort was the first team all defense guy, but I don't even think he's a top three defender on his own team.
Okay.
I think it's
Okay.
Caruso,
Okay.
J Dub, and Chet. Or Chet, sorry, Chet, Caruso, J Dub. I think
They
J
let they
Dub,
let Caruso smack the hell out of anybody, so I guess he could really be a really good
dude,
defender.
that dude's a dog. But
But
no, I
he
mean
is.
Dort's a dog too, but he's just I don't know. Some of his stuff, it's like he has that track, like obviously the stuff with Ja, that's at the forefront. But it's like at some point, like yeah, that might be unintentional. But at some point, you stack unintentional acts where you're like, this is kind of shady. I don't know. But regardless, uh, I don't want to come across like an OKC hater. At the end of the day, it's a small market team that, if we're gonna be honest, yes, they were the beneficiary of a large trade that yielded them not only Shea Gilgeous Alexander, but the pick that became Jalen Williams. But they just did things the right way. They're a small
Hmm.
market team that built through the draft. They did the right way, and if you're a team like Memphis, you look up at that and you're like, this is encouraging. Like we can do this. Like I don't know, or like if you're a team out east, if you're a team out east that's struggling trying to pave your way, like find your stamp, pave your way. I mean, heck, I know Orlando just traded four first round picks and a swap for Desmond Bain, but like they also drafted Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, and Jalen Suggs. So um yeah, it's still
Fuck with
encouraging.
Jalen Suggs. A lot of people were out on Jalen Suggs his rookie and sophomore year too. I know that. I mean, I know you're a draft guy, but like, because I was a big Jalen Suggs fan.
Me too.
So like, yeah, but a lot of people, he definitely was struggled, rookie and sophomore year. Like he was not a guy that bust out of the gate,
hmm
or even honestly, because he was a top five pick. There were. I mean, his value, I think, is of that of a guy at that draft stature, maybe, but he would definitely look at a guy that could be like a primary creator scorer for you out of school. He's not that. He's definitely more market smart than anything resembling that.
Marcus
So,
Smart, Derek White, yeah, he's
yeah,
at that
exactly. So
that
he just, I
realm.
think that, I mean, the game evolves because he got drafted during COVID. Uh,
hmm
but also, again, what's valuable is involved, and kind of what we'll get into talking about why Desmond Bain will fetch more than Kevin Durant in all likelihood. So, talent and value are not linear, are not
Right.
they're not a one-to-one thing. So it's interesting talking about that, because, like you said, yeah, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, great as a rookie. Doc Rivers, I don't know. He has a lot. I feel like he has a lot of revisionist history because he's been on this thing to where like he knew SGA was going to be this guy, when they traded him. I'm like, well, I guess it's convenient when you don't have that job anymore. You can say that, but like, I feel like you should have done something or said something in during that this was happening. But I don't think anybody outside of maybe him saw this happening, for SGA when he left the Clippers. So, but there's an argument to be said that Sam Presti the best GM in the past 25 years. So you
He's
want to
been
credit him for
unbelievable.
scouting, or do you want to credit to look at the scouting, all you have to put all these ingredients in together, like you said, to have a small market team um be NBA championship favorite for most of the year. So I feel you, but it's also no cap sportsman. So if you wanna spew some OKC hate, like this is a ball knowing platform, but um it's not a medium platform. We get off hate. We have favorites. We have guys we don't like. I kind of just went through it with you. So, like you said, if you like I said, as a Memphis guy, this is a Memphis based show. You feel what I'm saying? So if you're gonna get some of it off, we are not going to obliged. And like I said, I'm excited. So I mean, like I said, we've been yapping, but we'll introduce you officially to the No Cap audience because I feel like a lot of them will know your Twitter,
Yeah.
but may not recognize your actual face and things like that. Parker Fleming, Substack writer, covers the Grizzlies, Memphis native, Memphis fan, Memphis basketball fan, Memphis really basketball fan. I think I've seen some old Miss stuff on the
I went to Ole
TL.
Miss. Yeah.
Okay, okay. It makes sense. I think you posted it with a Stephon Moody picture. I think a couple weeks ago that was a
Yep.
blast to the past. So I
Yep.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
AKA Paka Flocka on X, Twitter, whatever the
Yeah.
social.
Whatever you call it now.
Exactly. Parker, what's going on, man? How are you feeling about our favorite team? Like you said, a week for the draft.
I'm feeling good. One thing I did want to say about at the beginning you said it's no cat sports. I can dish out any hate I want, but like I am actually just naturally like I've kind of made it a goal recently to just kind of I just appreciate hoops. I appreciate good hoops. I appreciate good hoopers. You know, um
The space has gotten a
like
little
I
bit very negative. I feel that.
like
I like that
like
energy.
for me like I'm just like I'm gonna watch like if someone's providing me good hoops, I'm gonna watch good hoops. Um and I'm gonna root for them. But no, I'm doing good and man, uh I'm just I'm excited, anxious about what the Grizzlies can do in the draft just because obviously, you went in with it, you know, you exited last week thinking, all right, well, you had the Jaren contract situation. You don't have a first round pick. You had the 48th and 56th pick. Like, not gonna be exciting. And then, I was actually getting ready to leave to go to the airport to head back home from outside Austin, San Antonio, Texas. Look at my phone and I'm like, oh shit, Desmond. And I told my wife like Desmond Bain just got traded, and obviously that is
How
very
did she
tough.
react? That's a real question.
That is her favorite player.
Oh
I
no. Oh
So
no.
I cannot explain to my wife, well, they had to
No.
do it for the draft picks because they got a lot of draft. Like you can't explain that to
Yeah.
to
It's too embedded in there. Too much heart in the game.
yeah. So
Hey,
she was upset because yeah. So that was her favorite player, and
sheesh.
on my end, I always liked at buying her because she goes to all the games with my mom because my parents have season tickets, and I try to especially with all these cool jerseys that they get and the fact that you get one new jersey a year. She has like three Desmond Bain jerseys, and now I gotta. I'm spending the off. My goal of the off season is to try to find her a new favorite player. So,
Ooh,
yeah.
sheesh.
So,
That is tough.
but
That
no,
is.
I'm excited. I'm anxious. Obviously, we'll talk more about it. I think they just have a lot. They have a ton of flexibility, a lot of directions in which they can go. They do have a lot of questions to answer, with one of them being who is now the third best player on the team. Because I do think that is a very important question um to address, especially too like because I also think you can have like an assortment like take for example Indiana. Like, yeah, on the surface Andrew Nimhard is probably their third best player, but the fact that they have these guys that can elevate their games and be the third best player on a given night. They have Neesmith, I said Nimhard, and Miles Turner, Opie Toppin, TJ McConnell, Benedict Mathen. They just have a lot of guys that can step up on any given night if somebody else doesn't have it. In Memphis right now, they're having to rebuild that. Not like rebuild like, oh, they're gonna tear it down, suck, be in the lottery. I'm just saying they have to if with them keeping John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., which all reports have indicated that they are, and you're still having an eye on the playoffs, you have to like what's your playoff rotation gonna look like? And now it's become very, very fascinating. And, I'm very eager and anxious to see how they tackle because they have a lot of different directions in which they can go.
Okay. Okay. No, you're right. That's why, like I said, I don't know if you got anywhere to go, but like we gonna be here a bit because it's like you said, it's a lot of talk. It was probably the most unsettled time in the Ja Morant era of the Grizzlies, which immediately preceded the Gritty Ryan era, which had most instability. So the most instability that the franchise has seen in a while, I would say. Before we get too far into that, I know the story about your wife. It was
Mhm.
actually, if I remember, like I said, being from the city, I always kind of knew it was prominently featured in one of the Grind City Media documentaries. I
What?
believe one of them, whether it was the Mark one, the Zebo one, one of them. I
Zebo.
remember watching it. Whether the
The
Zebo
Zebo.
one, yes. So if you could just tell the No Cap audience, about your better half and just kind of the things, just kind of the role that she's played in Memphis in general, but also with the Grizzlies.
Yeah. So I appreciate that platform. But yeah, no. Yeah, so you probably have seen my wife on various different stuff, grind the Zebo documentary, St. Jude commercials, or um trying to think for Memphis Magazine,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Like um my cousin texted me last night that they played her she has her own St. Jude video that they played at the Redbirds game last night. So it's
She's
like
definitely a local celebrity for
she is a
sure,
local celebrity.
for
Yes,
sure.
but yeah, she's been uh, battling cancer since she was 14 years old. She had a tumor the size of a golf ball in her brain. Um, and then 2015, I want to say her cancer relapsed. So yeah, that was when she first got it was 2013, and then she relapsed 2015.
Hmm.
Uh, and so she's in a good spot right now. Um, the tumor's stable, but it's like it does more damage to operate on it and take it out.
Mm.
So we just kind of live on our prayers and praying for good scan results each year and praying for minimal growth, all that. So but yeah, I mean, so what I do now is like with my Substack is, I want to give people a free outlet to look at Grizzlies content, there's so many stuff and no disrespect because I know people at the end of the day, these are people's jobs and they rely on these paywalls to get paid. I support paywall journalism. Like I pay for, the Commercial Appeal and Daily Memphian, The Athletic, ESPN Plus. I pay for different Substacks. Like I pay for that stuff, but I want to just kind of have a free outlet. And if people chose to pay, you just kind of had the satisfy. There's no like, oh, you get this content, this content. No, it's like, hey, if you pay, just take that as a donation to St. Jude, and that's all it is. And it's been fun, it's been rewarding. But at the end of the day, like I want it. I mean, I owe to St. Jude like the fact that they saved my wife's life, and then for my wife, it's like she gives me a lot of motivation and purpose and support. So that's why I do what I do.
No, and my mom actually works. My mom lives. She was used to be an attorney with the city of Memphis. Now she actually works in the States Department at St. Jude. She's been working there. Oh, probably 7, 8 years now.
Oh
So no,
wow.
since she started there, I've gotten to, I've been on campus before, which I was not aware of the size of the facility, just the
Hmm.
sheer size of it before she started working there. But also just the real, growing up in Memphis, St. Jude is kind of you see it, but you're not really aware of what all, goes into it and the mission of what they do. But like I said, with my mom, like it's definitely like just being, put on to all the just purely like altruistic things. I mean, it's the institution itself is an altruistic being within itself. But even beyond that, just the amount of things that they do, supporting people and really changing lives. Like it's yeah. So I just like I said, I know your wife's story. I don't know any way that we can platform, St. Jude and the work they do. It's a blessing. So each one teach one all of that.
Yeah, I will say before we get back to Grizzly stuff, just and I don't want to spend too much time on this because like he doesn't Stephen A. Smith doesn't need that much oxygen. But if you want proof of the good in the city of Memphis, go look at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And the fact like look at all the and then you have St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. But guess what? Almost like our entire almost the center of global transportation of goods comes through Memphis with FedEx.
Very much
And
so.
then you have AutoZone. Like mainly, but like if you were to look at the good in Memphis and what makes Memphis Memphis, go look at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Like, man, he could just miss me, like making like all these players. Nobody respects you. It's like maybe older heads that back in. the 2000s when, the market size of a team mattered, then sure, they probably said something to you, but nobody nowadays said anything to you. Nobody respects them. Like, yeah, I don't, that's just me. Like, it's just so stupid. Like, that's
Very
my Stephen A rant. Like, that is my dedicated Stephen A rant that, like, you can miss me about all that stuff.
No, it's crazy because I had it on the rundown, but I was like, if we touch it, we touch it. If we don't, we don't. Because like you literally, like you said, you know, the brain is a fickle place, and we didn't need to give we did not need to dedicate any more oxygen headspace to it than it already unfortunately has taken up. I got my thoughts out on Twitter. Um, like you said, I have, we both work, we both low degrees, we both have a whole bunch of other things to be doing and taking care of, but thinking about besides what Stephen A. Smith thinks of the city of Memphis. Was it hurtful? Was it damaging to a certain extent of the national perception? Definitely so.
Mhm.
But it's just like, you know, can't control a fool.
Yeah, because it's also like one of those things where it's like, yeah, granted, you can get on social media and you have this bubble of everybody calling Stephen A. Smith an idiot, but there's definitely a large portion of like a silent majority that is like, yeah, Stephen A. Smith's right, and that that's damaging.
Very.
There's people out there that are the silent majority where they're not on social media, but they take the word of these figureheads on these, whether it's Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, the Inside the NBA guys, or Skip Bayless. They take or Mad Dog
Take the
Russo.
cues from there. Yeah.
They take like they list that's their consumption of sports content, and those are their thoughts on sports. So,
No, it is, and that's the thing that like, and it was just so I felt like it was so backhanded. He was like, as a black, like today, he doubled down, which was
and he doubled down.
he was like, oh, as a black man, I can't just sit back and not tell the truth. And it's like, buddy, trust me, you have did way more harm to black people, specifically in Memphis, in this situation than not. So you just again, just stand down. You lost, you could have just apologized, you could have whatever. But he was like, no, no, no. He just said no. I would actually double down.
Right.
So no, it's just a situation to where, like, yeah, I'm just like I said, we're not going to dedicate that much more time to it. If any,
Yeah,
also, no, it's not. It's he's like you said, he said something stupid. He said something
yeah,
stupid, and there's more than enough people that are way more important and more valuable than Stephen A. Smith and have had more experience in Memphis to say otherwise. Bill Simmons had a largely um, nice review of Memphis. Rebutting Stephen A. Smith on his
yeah.
show with
I
Verno.
said that he goes on power walks all the time and he loves it.
Exactly.
Like,
And Bill Simmons is from Massachusetts. So it's like
yeah,
there's not a natural synergy there
yeah,
whatsoever. So yeah, Stephen A. Smith, like I get told you, I was in grad school in Syracuse in New York for 2 years. You know, ain't nothing up there that's messing with Memphis. The food is nasty, the people are rude, and it's way too cold. So he can be okay. He'll be okay. So I actually the first question, you're good at this. The first question I was gonna ask you, where were you and your initial thoughts on Desmond Bain? You already answered that. Leaving out
hmm
of my state currently. Um, so where do you see there's so many things at my fingertips. I guess the real question, the first thing I want to ask you, what do you think John Morant thinks of the current state of the Grizzlies?
that's an interesting question. Obviously, like, I feel like there's got to be some sort of optimism for him to come out and I don't want to get his tweet wrong or anything, but and conjunction with the all this hoopla that happened about the Memphis Grizzlies after they traded Desmond Bane, he said, "And I'm gonna be in that 901 Grizzly Bear emoji source me." If he was feeling a way about Memphis, I don't think he would put that out there. I don't,
I like I,
um, it's one of those things. It's interesting. So obviously, I don't know if he's like, yeah, like I don't think he's like all that excited like traded Desmond Bain, but I know that at exit interviews, Zach Kleiman said that he and Ja are in the best place they've ever been. So like I don't. maybe it's just he has trust in the organization, but also too maybe just trust in his body, you know? Maybe trust like, hey, I'm gonna be back next year, and whoever we have, I'm gonna ride with, you know?
Okay, okay. Like so we got a lot of things to go through. So I'll send your thoughts on Substack and on Twitter. I feel like everybody initially. So what kind of smush this conversation a little bit about it. What is your overall review of the value that the Grizzlies received for Desmond Bain and how how you would like to see them kind of flip that or utilize that going forward?
For sure. I'll just kind of break it down component by component. Um, Caldwell Pope, I know on the surface it looks like he regressed last year. Um, I know Mark Giannotto pointed it out, and then and then Coach Vaughn on Twitter also pointed out he shot better over the course of the year. Yeah, I looked at it, and he shot 39% from three on about four attempts a game from the new year until the end of the year. And then after the All Star break, he shot 44% from three. So, like, and now he's going from, getting to be off of the looks that getting to get shots off of the looks created from Orlando's point guards, which last year, they had Paulo missed time, Franz missed time, Suggs missed time. So, like, inconsistent offensive infrastructure there. So now he's playing off of the passing of John Morant, which is great. Which obviously it's more maximized as long as Ja's focused on like driving and kicking, making sure he's finding his shooters. That's great. Um, but I like the Caldwell Pope because at the end of the day, he's providing what they wanted from Marcus Smart, and that is a veteran that's going to set the tone, set an example in the locker room. And this is a guy that he is the only I saw in the press release he is the only active player in the NBA right now that has won two championships this decade, like in this 2020 decade. But I mean, Alex Caruso is about to join him, but um,
And I think, like you said, with the Smart thing, I think he's a better positional fit for sure. We were going to try to force Marcus Smart to guard twos and threes, and he won a DPO White could probably do it.
yeah,
KCP is 6'6",
yeah, he's
naturally a wing, guards wing guys, plays on the wing, and Marcus Smart, even going back to Oklahoma State, was more of a lead guard that played
yeah,
occasionally. So I think it's definitely
and
a
the
positional
shooting difference is
significant.
noticeable too, like because
Marcus Smart
Ja,
was a non-shooter coming out of Oklahoma State. Like so, and KCP was. I can't remember his stuff from Georgia, but obviously we know what he's done in the league. So you're right. Cause that was a thing where a lot of people me raise my hand. Was trying to talk themselves to the Marcus Smart thing with the grittiness, the toughness, the defense, but it was. You don't want to be revisionist, but it was always going to be a stretch to get Marcus Smart to rely on wing defense and shooting in the way that you probably needed him. And like you said, KCP is just naturally a much more natural fit for what you. I think at the very least you have a wing defender
yeah, very
complement Brandon
least.
Wells.
And guess what? If he's not good, the next summer his
Off the
contract's
books.
expiring. No, it's
Exactly.
expiring. It's a $22 million expiring contract. Like you figure that out. But just in general, it's like you know I believe that he can make an impact in Memphis for all the reasons that you said. And then Cole Anthony, like yeah, on the surface, it's like oh if John Morant goes down, you have another point guard there. I think he's just kind of redundant with Scottie Pippen Jr.
You think so?
I yeah, I think paying $13 million for a third string point guard is just isn't or at least like if you kept him and you had your backup one and two was Cole and Scotty, like that's already like that's small when Jaw's already small. The value in getting Cole Anthony is how you make your next move. Like, is he a guy that? So I'm gonna this is just speculation, but there's two teams I'm just keeping an eye on. One of them is Dallas because Kyrie's out. I don't have any other point guard, and they have these now with Anthony Davis, Derek Lively back in the fold, Cooper Flag coming in. They have this kind of log jam of these big forwards and these and then you have Daniel Gafford as well. So it's like, hey, can you do Cole Anthony for PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, Daniel Gafford, one of those three? Add them to the mix. And then another one I'm watching is Sacramento, because Sacramento needs a point guard, and they have after the De'Aaron Fox trade, they generated a traded player exception that fits right into Cole Anthony's money. And guess also what else the Grizzlies got from the Jake LaRavia trade? A 2028 second round draft pick. So those are just two teams that I'm just kind of keeping an eye on for Memphis if they do indeed plan to trade Cole Anthony. I think they do, but never know. And in the draft picks, I mean, look, the 16th pick in this draft, I know people complain about losing depth in the draft, but they didn't lose depth in the top 20. It just happened after that because of the NIL. But there's a lot of good players that could be there. Colin Murray Boyles, maybe. Cedric Coward, maybe. Neat Clifford, probably. Um,
For sure, Fleming for sure,
Bashir
definitely.
Fleming's good. I liked Thomas Sorber, Asan Newell. Like, it's a lot of guys that, I think could, make, I don't know how much of an impact they make next year, but like they can make an impact at some point down the road. And then the real crown jewel is getting that pick swap between the Wizards and the Suns. Get the work and like we're talking about, the the Wizards is like it's more about the Suns and how the Suns project to be. Obviously, they can save their rear with a good Kevin Durant trade and be better than expected, but like they kind of head on the same direction that they were this past year, then you're looking at a good pick in a class that's looking really good up top with Cam Boozer, Dan Peterson, and AJ Devonsta. But and then they got two more picks, which is kind of like I kind of look at it. It's just like in this day and age, draft picks are a currency. The teams that can do the most in the league, not only do they have the contracts or the cap space, but they also have the draft picks to do stuff. And now it's that climate.
OKC, like
Yeah,
look, OKC have a they can't they're not even going to be able to roster all the picks they have
exactly.
the next 3 or 4 years. It's crazy.
Exactly. Now we're talking about like with Memphis, the only teams in the league really with double digit first round picks are OKC, the Jazz, and the Nets. And like the amount of directions you can go in, and it's one of those things that's, you can say, hey, New Orleans, here's two first round picks for Herb Jones, but guess what? After that, you still have eight. Like it's not one of those things where before this trade, if you traded two first round picks for Herb Jones, like you don't have many other draft picks to
Numbers
trade.
there for
But
sure.
now they have these extras, and now things get a lot more interesting.
Mm, okay. I love that. I love that. And that's kind of the direction we'll go because, like you said, and even like you said, obviously 16th pick is not nothing. That's two picks away from being a lottery pick.
Right.
Obviously, next year, like you said, crown jewel. But even people are like, oh, these other two first round picks, Orlando's going to be good, and it's going to be 20 to 30, 25 to 30. Like, hey, we don't know that. We just and like I said, I'm a Apollo guy. We just saw him struggle to be healthy. He's a big physical guy that leads to injuries. But also like, where was Desmond Bain drafted? Where was Santi Aldama drafted? Like
Hmm.
the Grizz honestly have hit more so in the 20 to 30 range, and then the current range they're in. We remember Jake LaRavia, David Roddy, Zaire Williams was a little higher than that, 10 maybe. So it seemed like a situation like you see with Indiana in the finals are like, well, let's play from behind a little bit. Let's kind of back ourselves into a corner, and that's where we thrive at. So
Yeah. And then just
like they're gonna
another,
they're gonna do
um,
stuff with those. Like I said, is that's 27, 28 first round picks. I will bet those are probably contributors.
yeah. And let's also put it this way too. I mean, for one, it's one of those things you just also never know. You have these injury ravaged seasons, and sometimes you pick higher than you expect because your season went to shit. Like look at like that 2023-24 season of Memphis. They didn't expect to be picking ninth, you know? They had the jaw suspension and then Adams injury. You already had Clark hurt, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh crap, Marcus Smart's now hurt. Luke Kennard's hurt, and then oh cool, we get our guys back, and then in 1 week, you had John Morant, Marcus Smart, and Desmond Bain all get hurt. Like you can't predict that. But also with the whole, I know people are worried like, oh, I don't want to get there. Like I don't want to bring in another young guy. Let me just rattle off the names of a few guys that have been the pick 16 in the last few years. Last year was Jared McCain. The
Definitely
year
worth
before
it.
that was Keontae George. Keontae George, he's on a rebuilding team, but like not terrible.
That's an NBA starter still. Like
He's
that's
still starting.
an NBA starter.
Um, AJ Griffin, kind of a weird situation. Like he retired to go into ministry. I salute that. And in the 16th pick the year before that, Alperen Şengün. So you could get dudes, and also too,
Giannis was the 15th pick, I believe.
yep. And then
Like,
let's even look at the finals. Let's look at the finals real quick. Right now, four picks higher in the 2022 draft. Jalen Williams, the 12th pick. 3 years later, just had a 40 ball in a finals game, and he's all NBA this year, all defense, and all star. Like you just
no,
never know. Like you,
that's a fact. And like you gotta, I mean, maybe I'll be quiet. I mean, the words I don't Cedric Coward, like it's whatever. Like there's a guy that looks very similar to Jalen Williams that like you read, like with the guy we're talking about. Like there's an easy pathway to where, yeah, he could have a very similar track and development. Where there's a guy in this draft that looks like that.
wait,
Small,
which one you're talking about?
Cedric Coward. Like that's what I'm
Us.
saying. Like
That
you got a
dude.
guy that's like, like you said, it's looking maybe from my angle, more likely not, he might not even be there at 16. But if he's there,
Yeah.
like again, you talk about like it's like you said, it's not unrealistic because yes, out as I like that. I know Giannis is the 15th pick. Alfred Sengun, a All NBA, no, he wasn't All NBA, but
He
NBA
was
All
he was
Star,
he was one
the
spot away
last
from the
cut
NBA.
probably.
Last cut.
He was definitely the last cut. So yeah, let's get into it because, like I said, I think of the content of yours I consume the most. I think it definitely draft stuff. So I guess like would the categorization of a draft guy be unfair for you, Parker?
The category straight. What do you mean?
Like being a draft guy, like is that like your big thing, or like would you just like kind of just like a
Just hoops. Just
okay,
hoops. Because here's
bet.
the thing too, like obviously I can't track this across 30 teams, but at least with the Grizzlies, guys get drafted. At that point, I'm tracking player development. I'm tracking how is a player making these step by steps progression, but also counter with that, how are they regressing? What are areas of the game that kind of slipped off a little bit and stuff like that. It's just more of hoops. Obviously with draft, it's been a nice niche for me because I don't think that niche is in Memphis right now.
Hmm.
Besides Chip Williams, who has a really good Twitter account as well. Um, but yeah, and also I do want to say about the Desmond Bain trade. I know I've talked about the value ad nauseum. I have not been sad about a Grizzlies trade since I was a kid. Like
I feel that.
here's the thing.
It was your wife's favorite player. Like
Not
that's
just
a
that.
big thing.
It's not
That's a
just
big
that. Well, for one, I enjoyed watching him. He was always great in the locker room, great with the media, but also too, you know, it wasn't expected because at least with like Mark and Mike, you knew it was coming. Zebo, Tony, you knew it was coming. Rudy Gay, I mean, I liked Rudy Gay, but it wasn't one of those things where it's like I think the reason why I was
unbearable.
able to kind of pivot off of that quickly is because they got Tayshaun Prince back, and then also too, we had just watched a playoff series where they were a game away from the Western Conference Finals without him. So,
Okay.
but other
Okay.
than that, I haven't been actually the player. I had not been as sad. I had not been sad about a trade. My and since watching the Memphis Grizzlies, I had not been sad about a trade since Mike Miller
Mm.
and the fifth pick that was Kevin Love to Minnesota for OJ Mayo. And OJ Mayo is one of my favorites ever. But
Mm.
Mike Miller was like my favorite player as a kid. And I was sad for that one. I had not been sad about a trade since until Desmond Bain got traded.
Man, nah, it's deeper than rap. Sometimes it's deeper
Yep.
than rap. I'm not mad at it. Pick 16, our friend of the show, Michael Cole, kind of put this. I think he wrote his thing like it was gonna be a very chill day for Grizz fans, and that was a very non-chill day, very constant. I believe if it's not a starter, you should get a rotation player from this 16th pick. Just
Yeah.
because his value of it now with the trade of Bane gone, but also just yeah, kind of cashing on these assets. You identify some guys. We have some hits where it seems like we're both big Cedric Coward fans.
Yep.
Um, the actually not to be whatever. You are a big Colin Murray Boyles fan.
I'm a huge Colin Murray
I am a
boys.
Colin Murray Boyles hater. I will not lie
Okay.
to you. You're
All right.
much of a. I think you're a big enough ball knower to kind of maybe understand kind of the where place I'm coming from in terms of
Yeah.
shooting and NBA positional fit. Explain to me, or I'm not a teacher. Talk to me a little bit about why you think he'll be a good NBA player and why you think he could be a guy that could fill roles for the Grizzlies 16. Because I think it's a decent shot. He may not be there either, but also
Yeah.
I just think that he just, again, make the case for me because I do not see where he would fit with this Grizz.
Understand. Understand. It is a, I'm gonna read a little preview of my draft guide coming out on Wednesday, on Monday. So I have a section on here. It's a one page. I call it four takes, and I split up my takes into four quadrants. So like, quad one is like my critical positive. So it's a critique. Like the sentence starts as a critique, then it's a but ends as a positive explanation. Quad two, all positive. Quad three, all critical. Quad four, and that was critical into positive. Um, or positive into critical, excuse me. Colin Murray Boyles, I think he is the most like Draymond Green of any player that has ever received that comparison.
Okay.
I think he's that guy. Obviously, I think he has to show that he can shoot a little bit, but there's just it's one of those things where with him, I watch these some of these the reads that he can make, whether it's whether he's driving to the basket or out of the post. Like I've seen him get doubled in post and sling a bounce pass to the opposite corner. I've seen him drive off a short roll in the pick and roll and just throw a dart over to a shooter right after that on the drive. And then I also and that's also one thing with Memphis. I think one of the things that you need as a contender is you need your 4 and 5. You need at least one of your 4 and 5 to be a plus level playmaker, preferably a plus plus playmaker.
Mm,
OKC has Hartenstein and Chet. Indiana has Siakam. Go back to the conference finals, and you had Karl Anthony Towns at the 5 for the Knicks doing that. For Minnesota, you had Julius Randle, Naz Reid. Memphis doesn't have that. Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey just don't have that playmaking juice right now. Colin Murray Boyles is one of the best passers in the draft, in my opinion. And the thing that stands out with me too is, I think there's a lot of times where everyone's like, "Oh, that guy can defend 1 through 5," and I think it's a little stretch. It doesn't apply to a lot of players. I think it can apply with him because he's light on his feet. He's physical. He has quick hands, and that's the thing too. You look at the playoffs; it's getting physical. This dude's physical as all get out, and I just think in the right system. I think in the right system, he could become a Draymond Green type player, and I just see him as a guy that I think is going to impact winning. I can see him winning a championship someday. I think he's just that. I think he's that good.
mm.
I have him six
Okay.
on my board right now.
Oh,
But I
okay.
also, here's the thing. I also understand the pessimism because he is a guy that doesn't shoot, doesn't shoot well, and if he doesn't do any of that, he's a.
Like, do you see him as like, so you see him the Draymond, and I mean, I see the vision, but does he guard NBA? Does he slide his feet with NBA wings?
I think he can.
Okay.
I watched him slide his feet with DJ Wagner, and he's a guard.
Mm,
Like, so yeah, he measured in at 6'6.5", so he'd be a 6'7" center if he can't shoot, and that's not ideal. But here's how I also look at it with Memphis, because we don't know what's going to happen with Brandon Clark, with his because he's almost 30 and he just had another lower body injury. He has a mid-sized contract where if you put him some draft picks, you might be able to get somebody. And the Grizzlies have always had that success with those Jaren and BC lineups because Jaren has the size of a 5, but he can space the floor. But BC does all the 5-man work, but being the size of a 4. And it works because they can both defend the perimeter. I'm kind of seeing Murray Boyles kind of slide into that. Maybe if you bring it back Santi too, Murray Boyles is spending his minutes playing with either Santi Aldama or Jaren Jackson Jr. to kind of allow that floor spacing to still work. I don't know. I'm also just of the ideas like draft smart basketball players. And Colin Murray Boyles is so smart. But again, I'm not gonna I hope I persuaded you, but I also if I don't persuade you, it's not gonna hurt my feelings.
No, no, I mean, like you said, we've been, we've been basketball in general, the discourse has taken a rather negative turn recently. So I kind of appreciated what you kind of how you said earlier, kind of just like being an enjoyer of sports and hoops, trying to be better about that myself. But not even in that, like man, it's just a conversation. Like it's not a, you presented some things that I did not think about previously in terms of bringing a more physical element. With Jaren and BC and like how those lineups can match up in the vision you see with that. But also, yeah, you presented some things that did not think about or like did not envision. I do still think ultimately, I think I just want a more natural wing. I'm even kind of struggling with that with Rasheer Fleming a little bit. I do just think I would want to see because I mean I don't know in my mind. I don't know if I want to take the 16th pick on a guy that's going to drop the. I don't think we want to draft Edie's replacement for the first half of the season at 16. I don't think that would be smart. So I think if we're going to
So
use this, I'm my bad.
no, go ahead. I was about to cut you off, but let me say it.
I mean, I personally would like to see. I mean, if you have Coward, Nee Clifford, Carter Bryant, or even yeah, man, that group of guys, Rasheer Fleming. I would like to see a swing taken in one of these. How I see it, view it, high level wings.
Oh, yo, I
So yeah.
agree.
So, but what were you gonna say about a potential Edie replacement?
It's all right. And let me be clear, it's not an ED replacement. So here are two things. For one, if Cedric Howard is on the board at 16, I don't care who else is on the board. You sprint to the podium and go take Cedric
Facts.
Howard.
Facts. That is Jalen Williams. That is the draft. That is the draft profile of Jalen Williams from out of Santa
Yeah.
Clara. He obviously we got the Wazoo ties with Jay Wells on the roster right now, but like man, I'm a big fan of that dude. Like you said, smart basketball players, guys that can dribble, pass, shoot. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm all in on him. I think it would be
Yeah.
such a perfect fit for us. And I think at this point, I think I doubt whether or not he's going to be there at 16. One
Yeah.
thing I want to talk to
So
you
I'm
about.
gonna
Wait, wait, wait.
hold up. Sorry. I want to actually read off a query for you because I don't want to like lose sight of this while we're talking about Cedric Howard. Um, so this account, Chucking Darts, he's more of a he's a draft guy. And so he tweeted out this list a few weeks ago. First round wings that measured with a 7'2" wingspan since 2016. Do you want me to read these off to you?
Do please do.
All right, so 2023, Bilal Coulibaly, Jarice Walker.
Okay.
2022, Jalen Williams, Tari Eason.
Mm,
2021, Scotty Barnes. 2019, PJ Washington, Rui Hachimura. 2018, Mikal Bridges. 2017, OG Anunoby. 2016, Pascal Siakam. And Cedric Howard measured in at a 7'2" wingspan.
mm, mm.
So
Oh,
like,
I think that like if that's a guy that's available at that spot, I think potentially, of course. But I think the value of the 16th pick goes up. Because I think if you draft Cedric Coward at 16, I think you draft a starter, I believe. Which is not necessarily the case with all these other guys. Like I said, going just like reading your article and looking at it now and going through some of the guys that you again, a guy that I mean talk about wingspan. You're not gonna have a longer wingspan than Rasheer Fleming, in this draft. He's not mentioned, one of your guys. I told you I'm a fan of his.
yeah.
DeMarco Cole is somebody put him in, guys that he thinks the Grizzlies could target. Why do you do not think he's a good fit? What are your thoughts on Rasheer Fleming for the Grizzlies?
Yeah, I'm just a little worried because for one, like the creation stuff isn't I think he's more of a big.
Mm-hmm.
The creation stuff isn't there. This is his first season being like a shooter, but like he's a beast defensively, you know? He's a guy that like I can see the Grizzlies liking him because he's a guy that generates blocks, generates steals, you know. If you can develop the shot, like he doesn't really need to handle the ball. Like is as long as he can just catch and shoot and catch and shoot, then cut, great. And defend, great. That's all they need. I wouldn't hate it. Like I wouldn't hate that pick. I still have him like relatively high on my board. There are other guys that if they were in consideration for the Grizzlies, I would not be here for it, but he's not one of them for sure.
Okay. I mean, this is kind of the we're almost an hour. This is kind of the gist of it. We're not gonna talk about anything else that's more important than this. Your Carter Bryant is in your would be cool with selection. Outside
Yeah.
of Cedric Coward, I think if a kind of with Cedric Coward, I don't think he'll be there at 16. Carter Bryant will, but also I think that would be a guy that's a plug. That would also be a starter. I think we'd be a great wing defender at the top. Um, he did shoot the ball that way. Wasn't a great college guy at Arizona, but he has good mechanics. And yeah, I just kind of how we've done it with Gigi. That was a highly recruited. He was a high 4 star. He was a high 4 star, 5 star guy coming in there. It's the reason why he's a
Mhm.
one and done. I do think that there's a natural base, and I love. I think he studies Tamani Kamara film as a draft prospect guy. So I'm like, man, if you could be Tamani Kamara, that would be excellent. So you just, but
Yeah,
you're not super high in Carter Bryant potentially.
I like Carter Bryant. Like I do. The only thing I kind of worry about it's like how real is the offense
Mhm.
because like he shot 73% of the rim, but a lot of it was just kind of like transition or cutting, which like granted again that's all you need to do. But also too, it's one of those things where
Oh.
I think the defense is real. I don't think he can create. It's just like, hey, is the shooting real? Is the offense real? Is he just gonna be good enough offensively? But like he's big and he's got great defensive tape. Like if he could, yeah, if he's like a Tamani Kamara, and I think that's a lot of the reason why his stock has risen the way it has is because his defense. Like it's one of those things. It's actually really funny where we say that it like I watched some Arizona film and it's like oh like if you look at the box score it's like oh it doesn't really pop off and then also too you look he came off the bench but like I watched that team, and I think their three best players came off the bench.
Arizona, yeah.
Yeah, Carter
Tom
Bryant,
Lee.
KJ Lewis is a defensive monster, and they had a big man that's transferring to North Carolina, Henry Visar, who's really good as well. I was like, those three guys are there. Like when
I
those three
probably
guys are
would.
in the
That's
game.
crazy. Yeah, that's because Tommy Lloyd, he can recruit his ass off, but he doesn't seem to be the best game manager.
So
I'm not.
do you know the meme where it's like the guy that's playing the video games and then he leans in, like he's like leans in, like he's
Yes.
concentrated, like locked in. That's how I felt when those three guys came in. Like
Okay.
it was
I
crazy,
like
but
that because Vassar was really good too. And I'm RIP. I almost said Pac-12 tournament. He was really good in the Big Ten
yeah.
tournament and in the tournament for a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more draft because we touched a little bit on kind of the moves you would like to see. But we'll go a little bit more into that. But like honestly, I'm kind of really digging into this draft stuff. Noah and Singu. Am I saying this correctly?
No one, yeah, I think it's Essingway.
Essingwe. Ooh, that's a name. That's a
Oh man,
um breakdown. He's in your over the moon category. Your last one in the over the moon
he is
category.
in my over the moon category.
Explain him to me. I've watched some tape on him. Obviously, he's still playing, I believe,
Hmm.
overseas playoffs. You say you see Rasheed Fleming more as a big than a wing. I see him more as a big than a wing, and it just kind of break down your case for him because like I see the vision. I see
Yeah,
him similar to Colin Murray Burrows in the way like versatile defensive big with other skills that could be a added on, but just I kind of very up and down. I think some days he could be a great fit with bring defensive intensity, and other days I can easily see him as a Uzman Jang and he's only wearing warm-ups for 2, 3 years. So just gotta break that down for me.
yeah. I think the thing that kind of stood out with me more with Essingway than kind of like for example, I didn't like T. John Salon last year, the guy the Hornets drafted. I didn't like him. And then with Ujman, like that's like kind of your fear, like but it's one of those things where I felt like he was actually really productive for being he's 18 years old. Um, he was 18 years old for only half, like he was 17. He's actually 2 years or 2 days younger than Cooper Flag.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things that kind of stood out to me is like he's a guy that is like if he grabs a rebound, he can grab and
Grab and
go.
go for sure.
And and he gets to the free throw line like so many times. He almost has 300 attempts in 58 games. So he already has like a way he can generate offense. shot a little over 63% on twos. The thing that's so intriguing is the fact that's like he has this fluidity to get out in the open floor, and in the half court, he still kind of functions more as like a off ball player, a cutter, offensive rebounds kind of guy. But you know, he has this spatial awareness of knowing, oh, I need to be here to get the ball, and this is a good spot for me to get my shot. Um, Shot 70% at the rim, 70% on free throws. So like the touch indicators are pretty decent. I don't know. Like I just kind of watch him and I see this. He measured in at 6'10" without shoes, 7'1" wingspan, 18 years old, and he has his fluidity. He already has an elite skill where he can push the tempo and draw free throw attempts and touch the paint. And defensively, like they had him at the top of presses and stuff like that. He could defend on the perimeter probably a little better than he could defend the interior. Like if we're talking about like, hey, let's go take a swing in this draft, it's him. Like I think he's I watch his film and I'm seeing like I can see this reality where he becomes like a Pascal Siakam, Jaden McDaniels type player.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I like that framework because I was just trying I was honestly struggling to contextualize him because
Yeah,
like I said,
and so
he does have a lot of not saying random straight. Like you say, he put like yes, he looks very fluid in transition, but he's not a half court guy. And
yeah,
yet
the half court stuff, he's still
he's
got a
six
little more.
ten and he's 7'1", but he slides his feet better than he protects the rim, which is also kind of interesting. So I was kind of struggling to contextualize him. So said Jada McDaniels, Pascal. Okay, I see the
Or
framework.
like Batum. Not to go French to French, but like he could be Batum.
Can you think he ever shoot like Batum?
That's the thing. That's the thing.
He's a negative shooter right now for sure.
Yeah, 27, about 28% on catch and shoot threes. But I think the thing that I like with him is that he's attempting them. He's not just not shooting. He averages based off look at my numbers. He shoots a little over two a game. So it's not like he's shooting too many where it's like, all right, this isn't your game, but he's putting it out there.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
trying to grow that element of his game. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that if you're taking upside swings, I think he has considerably high upside. But also too, kind of the basis for me is that everyone's calling him raw. And if he's raw and putting out this production, then what he's going to be when he's not raw.
Okay. Pascal Siakam, Jaden McDaniels. Okay. Rangy, very lengthy wings that can defend. Nah, we can use a Jaden McDaniels. We could use it. We could damn sure use a Jaden
Yeah, Jay,
McDaniels.
man.
Okay. So
But
you think
again,
he could be a wing in the NBA?
yes, I think he'd
Okay.
be 3-4.
Okay.
My thing though, still, I still want a little bit more. Like, granted, if there's the upside swing, there's the upside swing, but like, it also depends on if you want your rookie playing next year. If you don't, pick him.
Facts.
Pick
Okay.
him.
And like I said, we're gonna flesh out.
For this team, like
Yes.
if I'm Brooklyn or Washington, I'm all over him.
Facts.
Like,
Swing for upside. Him and Sar as a 4-5 that's nasty.
that's cold.
That's cold for sure. Like I said, we're gonna dig into the draft because I like that's kind of my favorite topic. And I love my guys, but they're not big draft guys. So I'm getting it all out with you, honestly. Um, why is Nick Clifford not David Roddy? That outside of
Why
Colorado
is he
State,
not David
they have a
Roddy?
lot of similarity. I feel like in terms of I see guys, especially super senior older guys that kind of did everything their senior years and having to transition. We always think that we think that guys can downsize easy. But they rather did conference player of the year. He can do it. He can sit in the corner, hit threes and defense, play defense. He cannot.
Yeah.
Memphis fans, I know you're not a Memphis Tigers fan,
Yeah.
but we saw firsthand how Nick Clifford does a lot of stuff on the ball to hurt to be effective in basketball games. But I'm just a little iffy about how old he is, honestly, which I shouldn't probably be concerned about. But I am 24; it's really old. But also, do we think that he can be an effective catch and shoot and wing defender in a way that he did not do that at Colorado State last year? Last year, he was the initiator. He did everything for Colorado State. Do you think that he could go from on ball, do everything guy to catch and shoot 3 and D wing?
Hmm. That is a good like that is like my one question in scouting reports is with my scouting report is with on ball responsibility shifting, how effective can he be in a complementary role? I'm pulling up the David Roddy comparison right now. The thing with David Roddy that was trickier,
He could never really shoot like that, if I can
he
recall.
had I'm trying to do year over year comparison real quick. So Neat Clifford, he's only had if you since his I'll say 21-22 season. I'm not going to count 2021 because he didn't really play a lot. Since the 21-22 season, he shot 37% or better from 3 in all but one season. He shot 37 point literally last year 37.6% and this year 37.7%. David Roddy went from 19.5% in his freshman year, 27.8% in his sophomore year, and 43.8% in his junior year. So he had an outlier shooting season. David Roddy did. So with that said, I think Neek has a little bit more consistency as a shooter, whereas Roddy might be more of a powerful finisher. So I have Neek here shooting 56% on twos and 66% at the rim. So it's not like he's inept at shooting twos. And then also too, I'm looking at the assist numbers. David Roddy, 2.9 assists. Nate Clifford, 4.3 assists on
Mm.
almost as many turnovers as him. 9.4 rebounds per game. I just I don't know. I just kind of look at his framework and I think it's very feasible to see him when impacting winning basketball. And frankly, it's like I even saw I was interacting with Chris Harrington on Blue Sky about it was like why is Nick Clifford he might be closer to Chris Duarte than Desmond Bain. I'm like in my mind I'm like he's not Desmond Bain. He won't be Desmond Bain. I think
Mm.
he'd be Josh Hart. I don't think he's Chris
Mm.
Duarte. I don't think Chris Duarte was really that physical. I think that's
Mm.
the thing that Clifford
Okay.
has is he has a little bit more physicality to his game. Not the playmaker that he is. However, a little bit better in the steals department, but all in all, like I feel good about Neat Clifford. Neat Clifford, like again, it's one of those things like what are you wanting? Are you wanting a guy that is going to just be a solid role player for a decade plus, or do you want somebody again like you could get a Cedric Howard that's about like that too, but has that gear of an upside, you
Mm.
know? Or
Okay.
it's
Okay.
like hey, or you be like, hey, let's go get let's go get Carter Bryant, who could either be, OG Anunoby or Timoni Kamara, or he could just not be good,
You
you
could.
know,
It's very,
because he doesn't have the track record or pedigree as like a Neek. You know what I
yes.
mean? So it just depends on what you're wanting, to be honest.
Yes, yes, yes. The other guy that I honestly, because Liam McNeil, I see the clear fit shooter, was a better shooter in high school than he was in college. I think that, I mean, outside of losing to Memphis, Dan Hurley, I think he was a little misutilized there because honestly, I just think they weren't as talented as they should have been, and he was used a lot more on ball than he probably should be. Um, yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're spitting about Liam McNeely. So I was ridiculously high on Liam McNeely coming out of Mount Verde, and I'm still high on Liam McNeely because that context sucked. That was horrible context. Could you imagine how much better Liam McNeely would look if he got to play with Stephon Castle, Donovan Clingan, Cam Spencer, and Tristan Newton? He would have been unbelievable.
mhm.
And then he got thrown into a role where he's not with as many good playmakers, and Dan Hurley said, "You are our cook," and that's not his game. So obviously he's going to look bad. And then he had that ankle sprain too, where he's like, all right, he's already not the most athletic, and now you have an ankle sprain. That's going to basically turn the volume on his flaws up by 10. So like, I think
Even
in
less
a
less ability to separate and all that. Yes.
yeah,
So no, I feel it completely. Thomas Sober, sorry, buddy. I want to talk a little bit about you. I'm intrigued. You know what? Give me 2 to 3 sentences on Thomas Sober and how you see the fit at 16.
yeah. This was actually my theory on the hey, let's say you go out and get like this is under the assumption like if you do like a BC trade. Let's say you go out and get like Luke Cornett in free
I saw you
agency
tweet that. Yes.
to be the starting five while Edie's out, but also be the backup five when he's back. But you still need a backup five because I don't know if you want Jay Huff minutes every night. Thomas Sorber is like the perfect guy. 6'10", 7 foot wing, 7 foot 6 wingspan. Um, can block shots, get steals, can pass the ball, rebound. I I just think he can do a lot as a big man.
No, he's a guy that wasn't supposed to be one of them guys coming out of Georgetown and like guys that could protect the rim and shoot the three. There, that's the next. I think that's the most next valuable non-superstar archetype besides 3 and D. Rim protecting stretch big, arguably may be more valuable than 3 and D wing, honestly. So he fits the archetype pretty perfectly.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that honestly, yeah, like you said, he can do a lot of things. If you can provide that at 16, I'm good. Parker talked a lot about the draft guys you could do with 16.
Yeah.
If you were Zach Kleiman, the general manager of the Memphis Grizzlies, what would, if it had to be a trade, I guess I'll say, how would you go about continuing to retool this roster? One of these New Orleans wings, Herb, Trey Murphy? Is it Cam Johnson? Is it a superstar swing? How would you go about making this a non-playing team before game one next year?
By non-playing, you mean like a team that's a top six
Top
team in the
16,
West?
yes.
Okay.
'Cause I
Um,
think I think we currently project as a playing team as the roster is currently constructed for sure.
yeah.
Um,
I think out of the New Orleans wings, I think I'd be trying to get Herb just because I think he is the absolute, like, I think he is one of the, at least one of the three best perimeter defenders in the NBA. I
and we
think
have a Herb Jones hater on this show, but I'm a big Herb Jones guy. I think that so you would want him over Trey
just because I think New Orleans is going to ask for the same pick package that Desmond Bain got.
for Trey Murphy, yeah.
So
And
like
so you think Herb would go for significantly less
I think especially after the fact that he's coming off off-season surgery, like if you could do like Brandon Clark, Gigi Jackson, 2 first-round picks for Herb Jones, I'd do it all day.
Mm. Mm. Okay. So
That's
you're in the go get a solid starter versus go take a superstar swing. That's how he's trying to see this.
I just want, like, honestly, I kind of am in this boat of like, because I just don't know who those next guys are, and the next wave of guys are. Like, honestly, like, yeah, I'd love to go get Giannis. You're not getting him. I don't really want Kevin Durant. I think the only guy that
The
fits
Grizzlies
the
don't either, apparently.
who's that?
The Grizzlies apparently don't either. So I guess we're
Yeah. Um, well, especially now that because the defense would, uh, like not the defense, the offer that you'd be offering for him because of the salaries, it's just one of those things like you can't really legally make it work until August. So like I don't know. Another trade I'd like to do, and this is with Cole Anthony, and this was an idea I was hinting at earlier. I would call Sacramento and say, "Hey, here's Cole Anthony, and I'll give you your 2028 second round draft pick if you just take his salary in." And they say, "All right, cool." But it's actually a three-team sign and trade where the Grizzlies would be signing Nikhil Alexander Walker. I
you're a big nah guy.
I'm a huge Nikhil Alexander Walker guy because I think he's a guy kind of fits that mold of the Derek White, Caruso, Nimhar, Neesmith role where it's like he's just a dogged defender. He's a secondary playmaker. He can shoot the ball. Like, and I think now that you don't have Desmond Bain, I think if Ja's out, that's a lot of ball handling pressure on Scottie Pippen Jr. And
Nas a
uh,
point guard by trade, I believe, out of Virginia Tech. So
yeah,
see
and
that there.
so that's the guy for me. I'm like that's a guy I really want them to get. Um, and also too, what I'm also trying to do is I'm trying to rebuild this wing depth, and there's a report that they see Jalen Wells as a long term starter, and then but they also like I'm sure they want to keep Kentavious Caldwell Pope. Kentavious Caldwell Pope. I don't blame them for reasons that we outlined earlier about him just bringing that championship pedigree and bringing that 3 and D kind of vibe that they need. But I want I don't want it to be them two being the two best wings, just
Hey,
because we saw what happened last year when Jalen Wells went down, and it just kind of fell to a house of cards.
And this is where the Gigi and Vince regression hurts you so much. Like,
It hurts you, and like I have faith that they can bounce back. My fear is relying on both of them. I can rely on one of them. I don't want to rely on both of them.
yeah, I mean, I was a huge Vince fan. I was a big Vince fan coming out of VCU. So
Vince is,
for him to forget, for him to look like that in the against the Warriors, like I think that he may be. He was the one that got minutes. Gigi didn't see the floor. I think that he may be the one that may be more closer to the end of the line situation than Gigi, because Gigi's always going to just have that shot creation ability that people
yeah,
don't crave out of that wing.
yeah. And now without, I mean, you're losing a lot of creation. I'm not saying you have GG Jackson starting or in the rotation, but that's all you're losing a lot of creation without Desmond Bain.
No, that's a
Um,
fact. That's a fact. That's
but yeah, no, I would be targeting guys like Nikhil Alexander Walker, Herb Jones. Um, I like Najee Marshall. I like him. Um, but
okay.
really, it's those first two guys where those are the guys that I'm really trying to get aggressive.
Okay.
Because the thing is now that's interesting that with Nikhil Alexander Walker, aside from Brooklyn, no one else can really pay him.
Mm, yeah. And
So,
I don't know if he wants to go. Is he gonna go? Is he gonna be a guy who goes from two Western Conference Finals appearances, or yeah, yeah,
but the
two
most
deep
minute,
playoff runs to not contending? Like I just don't see that
well,
for him.
so the counter is Minnesota, they have Nas Reed, Julius Randle contract situations, and the most that they can, I don't like Nikhil Alexander Walker because he was already making not a lot of money. Like, I think they can only pay him like $7 million a year.
Oh wow, oh,
So like they can't afford him.
that's not
And then
enough.
they also too, they have Terrence Shannon Jr. that they're going to want to play, and they have Jalen Clark who they liked as well. And Chris Finch always goes 8 or 9 deep. So like maybe they say, hey, we loved Naw, but we have these guys and we can't afford to pay them.
One man's trash is another man's treasure. I would love to see if the second neighbor could bring us Nikhil Alexander Walker, that would be great. Um,
Hmm.
that would be great. Herb Jones, I like I said, I think I like how you're doing because I think it is more so of it's not cashing in all the assets on a Giannis or a Devin Booker. It's kind of splitting, it's kind of hedging your bet. Maybe throw out two, like you said, for a Herb, or maybe one or two for a Nah. But you're gonna still have some draft capital to take some swings, but you're also gonna use some of it to acquire at least a guy that you think can be a fifth starter. So
Hmm.
I see the vision, Parker. I see the vision. Man, that was fun. Like I said, I got
It's
to
a lot of
nerd out
fun.
with my draft stuff, how I usually came with my guys. And I mean, like I said, you're a guy that's been in the locker room and with this team. I just had to get on and rap with you about everything that has transpired with this franchise in the past week, 96 hours, however you want to play it. So, Parker, thank you so much, man. That is Parker Fleming. Shout out, plug yourself, shout out people, where can people read your content, where are you at on Twitter, all that jazz.
Yeah. Twitter name's Paca_Flocka. You can find my Substack there, Substack Elitas, Memphis Grizzlies draft stuff. Dropping my draft guide, second annual draft guide on Monday. So keep an eye out on that. I've been working a lot on that, and it's been very fun, very rewarding. A lot of the stuff that we talked about tonight, you'll find that stuff in the draft guide as well. Um, Actually, ironically enough, pretty much all the guys that we talked about, Essingway, Murray Boyles, Cedric Howard, Thomas Sorber, on my personal board, I had them higher than 16.
Hmm.
So if any of those guys end up, and then Neek at 15, Liam at 16, they get any of those guys, I'm ecstatic.
Okay. Okay. So Parker Fleming has an eye on the future, but also the present of Memphis Grizzly basketball. Parker, I really appreciate this, man. We're gonna run it back at some point. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that is No Cap Sports featuring Paco Flocka, y'all. Be safe. We got some more content coming out for y'all, and we